or you'd like to refer to this later, or you want a colleague to see this, it will eventually be posted to our website. So my name is Veronica Watson. I'm the Community Programs Manager for CSBG. I'm joined today by Justin Bruce, our Fiscal Monitor, and then I believe some other IHCDA staff are also on the line, but Justin and I will be the main presenters, starting with me. I will be covering the carryover and closeout processes. I know when we first put out notice of this webinar, we focus on the closeout process. I do believe that is the process we're going to have the most questions on, but I want to make sure that everyone knew about the carryover report and what you need for that, where to find it, when it's due, yada, yada. So some housekeeping. I'm going to try and keep everyone muted. If you become unmuted and don't speak and I see it, I'm going to probably mute you, and I ask my colleagues to do the same. It helps a lot to keep the lines clear. I will, during my presentation, I've got some slides, and during my presentation, I'll have a couple of points where I'll stop and take questions. And at that point, you can unmute yourself and ask questions verbally. If you are on your computer, you can click on the microphone button to mute and unmute yourself. If you're on your phone, I believe *6 will do the same. And you can also, if you're on your computer, you can enter questions or comments into the chat function. My co-pilot, Justin, will be helping me manage that and making sure that we're keeping up with everything. But again, I want to wait to address questions until those points in my presentation where I made time for that. So without further ado, let me share my screen with y'all. Okay, I'm going to assume that my screen is sharing. Someone can pop up and let me know if they are unable to see the PowerPoint. You should see something that says CSBG carryover and closeout plus claims cover sheet. And
yes,
today's
it's
date.
not in presentation mode, but you can see the document.
There we go. Thanks, Emily.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so moving right along, quick agenda. We're going to go over a carryover. We're going to go over closeout. And then Justin is going to spend the last, I'm hoping 20 minutes or so, going over a claims cover sheet that he's been working on and taking any questions or comments that y'all have on that. So starting with carryover. This is a similar process to what we did last year, but the cutoff point between the first program year and the second program year, which for 2020 was December 31st and January 1st. We're switching from regular funds to carryover funds. So we're asking all of you by February 15th, if you are still spending 2020 funds in 2021, to submit this carryover report and basically let us know how much of that 2020 funding that you'll be spending in 2021. So I've got some screenshots in this presentation of what we ask for in that report, starting with just basic information. What's your agreement number? What is your subgrantee name? And most importantly, what is the final claim number for 2020 expenses? And then the box in the upper right-hand corner, you leave blank. We fill that in as we receive these reports and approve them. So again, this should be somewhat similar to what you had to submit last year, maybe cut down a little bit. I think we used to ask for like your address. I don't really need that. I know where all y'all are located, but we do need this information. The bulk of the report is in this box. So once you scroll down on the carryover report, which is listed on our CSBG website, we're asking for the numbers. So we're asking first for your budget for your 2020 award. We're asking how much you spent between January 1st, 2020 and December, it should actually be 31st, 2020. And then whatever is the remainder is what we consider carryover. And actually the form automatically calculates that for you. So I've tried to put some notes throughout where to give you tips on where you can find these numbers in case you're maybe new to the program and unfamiliar with where to find these. So column 2 should match your last budget or the budget modification that you submitted on your 2020 award, and it should also match what is currently listed as your budget in IHCDA online. And then again, column 3 is whatever you spent so far in 2020. In column 4, we've automatically done for you. So again, another cheat sheet is when you're in DMS and you're looking at your last claim for 2020 expenses. The budget column is what you would enter for column 2. The total claim column is what you'd enter for column 3 on the carryover report. And the balance to claim column is what you do enter for column 4. As I mentioned, I'm recording this and I will also make the slides available. So if you want access to this cheat sheet, you will have access to it. It will be posted on our website. If not this week, then next week. So the reason that we are asking for this, or one of the reasons that we're asking for this, is that what you report to us as what you've spent versus what you're going to be spending in 2021 allows us to open up new line items in IHCDA online. So right now on your 2020 awards, unless you've already submitted your carryover report, you just have CSBG line items, the table that's in the bottom of the screenshot that's currently showing. When you submit the carryover report and when we approve it, we've checked it, everything looks good, we'll use those numbers to create new line items under CSBG carryover. And then moving forward, your CSBG line items will have been spent. You won't be able to submit claims against those. You'll only be submitting claims against your CSBG carryover line items until you have spent all of your 2020 funds. This is where I'm going to ask questions. I know I went through that really quickly, but again, it's somewhat similar to what we've done in previous years. So I'm hoping none of you are too shocked or confused by this, but happy to take questions. I do have two that I hear most often about this process. And so I want to just go ahead and address those at the start. The first question is always around a concern about penalties for having carryover. And let me just be super frank and say that there are no penalties. You guys are allowed 2 full federal fiscal years in order to spend your funds. So you have until September 30th of the second federal fiscal year to spend your funds. And whatever you spend in your first year versus your second year, there's no penalty, no points against that. We might ask questions if you are carrying over a large amount of funds. We might ask, are you having any issues spending down your funds? Are there things going on either your agency or your community that we should be aware of that we could potentially help with? But those are just questions and hopefully opportunities for us to help you, again, not penalize you. So no penalties for carryover. And then I imagine a follow-up question that I sometimes hear from folks is if there's no penalty or no no consequence of having carryover, why is it so important to collect? And the most straightforward, simple answer is for reporting. There's a screenshot on the bottom of the current slide that shows a table that I have to fill out for each agency as a part of the annual report. And you'll notice the last column asks for carryover. So it's asking how much are you spending of the current year, in the column to the left of that, and then how much that have you spent in this past year, how much of that was carryover. So this carryover report helps me greatly in answering that question. And notice that they base it off of the federal fiscal year. I've highlighted that as the third slash. So while this year we are taking we consider carryover in Indiana starting January 1. In order to better answer this question in the annual report, starting with the 2021 program funds, the carryover report will be collected earlier. The cutoff point will be that November 30th federal fiscal cutoff point, and we'll be collecting the carryover reports November 15th. But that's moving forward. I wasn't able to institute that rule early enough for 2020 to do it that way, although that would have been preferable. So that's why we're collecting it as part of the December to January switch. So that is a very brief and very quick overview of carryover. Does anyone have questions? And I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a second. Questions on carryover? Again, you can *6 or unmute yourself with the microphone button on your computer. All right, hearing none. And if you come up with a question later, after I do the closeout report, happy to take questions then as well. But moving right along. Let me share my screen again, and we will keep moving forward. So, closeout. Everyone will have to do a closeout report at some point. Most of you will be doing a carryover report. I know most of our agencies do end up having some carryover. Some do have very small amounts. Some have fairly large amounts. So not everyone will have carryover and have to do the carryover report, but everyone will have to do a closeout report. And that closeout report is due whenever you have spent all of your 2020 funds and you've claimed them all in IHCDA Online. We need this report in order to tell program staff that you spent those funds, and it lets us know that we need to open up your 2021 award so you can start claiming on that. This report should be submitted with your final claim on your 2020 award, which should show that you have no balance remaining on that award. And so going into what we ask for in that report, the first box is the same as what was on the carryover report. We just ask for the award number, your agency. The one difference is that when we ask for the claim number, we're asking for the claim number of the final claim on your 2020 award. So the next thing that we will ask for on closeout is very similar to what we asked for, if not in some cases the same as what we ask for on carryover, which is the amounts. So similar to your carryover, we're asking for budgets versus expended. So we ask for the amount that you expended between January 1st, 2020, and again, that should be December 31st, 2020. And again, tip, I'm trying to make this as easy for you guys as possible. It should be the same amounts as you reported in your carryover report if you submitted one. And again, it should also match what was explained in your what's listed under your CSBG budget and IHCDA online, your CSBG regular budget. Then we're asking for what you spent between January 1st of this year, 2021, through your last day to spend 2020 funds is September 30th, 2021. So again, this is the carryover. How much did you spend of those funds? Column 4 adds them together for you, and they should equal that total should be the total amount that you were awarded in 2020. And then column 5 is somewhat new. We are calculating the percentages for you to help ensure that you haven't gone over the maximum, which for 2020 was 36% of the expense of your funds can be put towards administrative expenses. So we calculate that for you so you don't have to do the math and show that you did it correctly. So moving forward, so that is somewhat similar, if not exactly the same as what we've done in previous years. What is completely new for this year and where I'm expecting the most questions is the next table, which is asking for a breakdown of the direct program and service costs. So again, this is a screenshot from the box is a screenshot from what is on the closeout report. And there are 3 columns that need to be filled in. The first 2 are ones that you will edit. The third is going to be automatically calculated for you. So the first column, which is a dark blue, you will edit and enter in the names of the programs that you use CSBG funds to support during your 2020 award term. So what they should say, or what they should match, are the programs that you listed or described in the attachment 7 of your community action plan and the programs that you highlighted in your attachment 6 cover page of the community action plan. So things that I'm looking for could be HCV, your housing choice voucher program, IDA, a job training program that you created yourself at your agency, weatherization supplement, kind of anything that you're putting CSBG funds towards, list in column 1, and please try to have the names match or be very similar to what you listed in attachment 7 and attachment 6. I think sometimes names can change a little bit between what you actually refer to them, what you have in your accounting system, and maybe like what the federal program is usually called. Please just put whatever you put in your attachment 7 or attachment 6. For column 1. For column 2, you're actually going to put the total funding amount that you put for that particular program. And column 2 will be automatically tabulated. It should be automatically tabulated for you so that the total at the bottom of column 2 should match the direct program costs that you provided in the table above in column 4, the third or fourth row down where for direct program service. So that number in column 4 should match the total of column 2 of the second table. And then again, column 3 auto calculates for you, so you can see what percentage, of your total CSBG award, or at least of your program expenses, what percentages are going to each program, which will be important in a couple of slides. But just kind of going through the closeout report, next thing we ask for, which is new, is program income. I don't believe, have had that in a report previously. Not every agency has program income, so it's totally fine if you are reporting 0 for this, but I know at least a couple of agencies have asked us about this in the past, or they have program income and they want to report it to us in some way. So here's where you can do so. Just make sure that you're only counting program income earned from whenever you opened your 2020 award, and then from starting then and then ending whenever you spent your 2020 funds. Okay, so questions. Again, I try to think of the ones that I believed would be most likely to be asked. Some questions I've already received from agencies who have either started or completed the closeout process. So starting with the first one, programs that you funded with 2020 funds that you would be reporting on this closeout report, that might be different than the ones that you think you're going to fund in 2021. So the program list might be different from this closeout report to what you submitted in your community action plan. Does that difference create a problem? Answer is no. I might ask about a difference. I noticed that you had HCV on your closeout report, but it wasn't included in your action plan. Can you tell me why? And if you want to say we funded it in 2020, but we're not expecting to fund it in 2021, we've got other funding sources to cover it, that's totally fine. That's an acceptable answer, and we'll stop there. The one thing I will note is if I find either through this process or if Justin discovers when he's monitoring that you are currently funding a program that you haven't described in the community action plan, either the current one or any future one that I collect, I might ask for you to provide an updated attachment 7 that includes that program, description of that program, and really how you are allocating funds to it and income qualifying in that program. So you're not going to get into trouble. I just want to make sure that I have documentation on file that shows how you are considering income for that particular program. Second question. This is a new process, and it's going to be really difficult to go back and figure out amounts for each program. This is not something that we expected or had set up our systems to be able to do. How much time are we expected to spend on this to get it perfect? And answer is that I do not expect this to be perfect because this is being introduced so late in the 2020 program cycle. So what I'm asking for you is to just get as close as possible to perfect. Get your numbers where you feel comfortable reporting on them. And if they're not perfect, either the programs, you need to figure out the differences between programs, or the numbers aren't exactly perfect. Most likely that will be fine. I might have questions. Again, I might kind of probe and see what's going on, but I'm not expecting perfection this time around. Now, what I am hoping is that by going through this process now, you'll be a little bit better prepared for the next closeout cycle, which will be for the 2021 round. So go through it this time, get it as close as you can without spending hours on it, and just take note and see what you can do to be able to provide this information and have the numbers and the programs match perfectly for your 2021 closeout report. And then final question, I always like to address any questions, whether or not you guys ask them, about why. Why are we collecting this? Why are we asking for this additional work and for this additional information? Is it necessary? And so I've got a couple of different answers that I wanted to make you all aware of and kind of think about to see how it might impact your programs or your agencies or how you address any of these issues. The first reason why we're collecting it with specifically with the closeout report is the fact that when I go in and I review claims, which I do very rarely, but sometimes I do because I either have a question or our claims department has a question. When I go in and I'm reviewing those claims, there's no way for me to be able to identify, in some cases, which programs are receiving CSBG funds. Some agencies make it very clear they are submitting the general ledgers or receipts from those particular programs, but not everyone does it that way. Some are submitting general ledgers for just CSBG. And within that, they're covering separate programs, but the programs aren't listed or clearly identified. And I need to be able to know what program CSBG is going towards. So with the documentation that we've been collecting through claims, I can't do that. So that's why we're collecting it through the closeout report. This is also a way for me to kind of balance and check on the information that you guys are providing in the community action plan. What you're providing in the community action plan is your expectation for the coming year, what you think that you're going to be using CSBG for, and the breakdown of the allocations for it, at least based on those programs' budgets. But those are just expectations, and you're not held to those. That's not a contract that you're signing. If you end up funding one program way more than you expected, or you end up cutting one or two programs from CSBG funding, that's totally fine. This is just a way for me to actually see what you actually ended up doing, and again, making sure that I have the right information on file for how you're checking eligibility. Continuing on, a couple other reasons why we're collecting this, we've noticed that the way that agencies define or approach direct program costs versus admin costs can differ across from agency to agency. And we're really interested in having more consistency across the network and how we address these types of costs. We want to make sure that everyone is fully utilizing the CSBG funds the best way they can. I think the one way that we can help ensure that that happens is making sure that we understand how the funds are being used and how they can be used. So collecting this information helps me kind of get a baseline understanding of how you guys are using the funds and how you address these two different types of costs. And then finally, I know I've been spending a lot of time and energy getting you guys to beef up the information you have on your income verification processes. And I'm really happy that with the information that I've collected so far and the time and energy that agencies have spent on that. But going forward, just to be completely transparent, it is not my intent to dig deep and make sure that for every single program that you are doing CSBG for, that you have some in-depth, perfect income verification process. My goal is that you have a process that you can easily explain and that seems reasonable. And specifically for the programs that you are only using a very small amount of CSBG funding for. So if you are using CSBG funds and it's only supporting 5% of a program's budget, or only represents 5% of your overall CSBG award, I don't want to make you spend hours on end updating your income verification processes, walking me through how you do it. Taking that kind of time when really the risk that you are providing CSBG funds to people that aren't eligible is incredibly low. I'd much rather spend time and effort on the programs where you're using a large amount of CSBG funds, either a large amount of your award or the CSBG represents a large portion of a program's budget. Those are the programs that I want to spend a little bit more time on and make sure that you guys are being really careful and thoughtful and strategic in how you're doing income verification. And the only way that I can tell the difference between those is by collecting information like this. So once again, very fast explanation of this process and hopefully a little bit on why this process is necessary. Questions? Questions on either closeout or on carryover? Okay, hearing none. I am going to put into the chat the link to our CSBG webpage on the IHCDA website. If you go to that page, and I want to say it's about halfway down, you'll see a section called CSBG Closeout Process. That is where we have links to both the carryover and the closeout report documents that are required for this. If you're on the phone and you're not able to see that link, just Google IHCDA plus CSBG. It should be like the first link that pops up. That's usually how I find that page. But again, you're going to want to look for the section that says CSBG closeout process, and you'll see both the carryover and the closeout report documents, along with a draft document that provides some instructions on how to fill those out. And when this recording and webinars are posted to the website, it should be in that section as well. So any questions or comments? If you would like to talk, you can unmute yourself with the microphone or *6 on the phone. You can post a question in the chat. Otherwise, I'll let Justin take over. Okay, no questions. I don't know if I should find that comforting or scary. Justin, are you ready to take over with the claims cover sheet? Justin, you might be muted if you're talking. Oh, yeah.
Yep, I think so. Here, let me pull up the right one here first. Oh, same one. Sorry about that. All right. Hope everybody's doing all right this morning or today. I guess it's afternoon now. Just want to go over the CSBG claims cover sheet that we've come up with. You should be able to see that on your screen.
Hey, Justin, can you increase the size? Because I think some of the words are hard to see.
Pretty small.
On our end. Yeah, that's
okay.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So just real quick, the claims cover sheet is something that I think we've been working on discussing for over a year now. After reviewing some claims, it become apparent pretty quickly that each agency has their own unique process for submitting claims and documentation. And when we approached this topic with some of our financial ops team, it come to our attention as well that there's some other programs that have benefited from claims cover sheets in the past and presently. With that in mind, the idea was originally brought up at a fiscal roundtable at INCA in 2019. I believe it was in November. The response from the group of fiscal directors and staff present was a positive one. And so again, after discussing a little further with the financial ops team at IHCDA, we decided to put something together that would A, establish a standardized structure for agencies to follow, B, encourage agencies to submit only the necessary documentation as well as the correct documentation, C, move towards creating a more efficient and accurate claims review and payment process, and D, would also include high-level important information for various program staff to review. With that being said, I believe you'll see that the form itself is pretty easy to fill out and will only require information that is readily available. So when we start looking at this, at the top, we have the general claim information. This is all information that is gathered currently, so nothing new here. Award number, claim date. We did add the date range of expenses. So, usually this is like for a whole month. So you may do like 11/1, 2020 to 11/30, 2020, for example. You'll enter the total claim amount. And then this little section here, you'll enter the admin and direct program expenses separately. Those will total themselves, and that should obviously equal the total claim amount. So it's just a little check there for you. The IHCDA program support section, as you all know, CSBG dollars are allowed to be used in support of other programs, other grant-funded programs, if within the limits of the regulations. So there are many special cases, though, that deserve extra attention to detail. And a lot of times that falls on the burden of our financial ops team, as well as some of our other program staff, who may be reviewing the documentation. So when CSBG dollars are being used in support of other programs, it's usually fairly difficult to spot when reviewing claim documentation, as Veronica was mentioning. So this section will go a long way in creating efficiencies at IHCDA's expense processing of your claims. The next section is items requiring documentation. In order for a CSBG claim to be submitted correctly, there is a short list of expense types that need to be accompanied by documentation. This section is basically providing a checklist for your fiscal staff who compile and prepare the claim documentation. And it'll provide the reviewers a heads up as to what they should expect within the actual claim. And then this is just information for yourself, but it's also showing that we kind of want the claim documentation to come back in a certain order. And we've highlighted that here, the general ledger or expense report that everybody submits, and then follow that up with some of these special case items. So follow it up with the credit card statements and CSBG receipts, charges over $1,000, travel expense documentation, and then any other necessary documentation dictated by IHCDA staff policies or contracts. I also want to show you an example of what this might look like that might answer some of the questions that you may have. So let me pull that one up here. That's the same one. All right, here we go. So we did include, I'll show you this in a second, but we did include some cover pages for those separate sections. But like I said, this is like a sample that I created using some various, sample documentation. So I entered the award number here, CSO 21111-S for sample. Claim number 1. I got the claim date as today, and then I'm submitting the claim for expenses that were incurred during December, the month prior. Total claim amount, broken out by admin direct expenses. We see we have the same total here. Within this claim, we did support weatherization by $550 of CSBG dollars. And the brief description here, as you know, there's some descriptions that we like to use for certain program support. So here listed low cost energy efficiency measures. And where there's been some questions, internally with us as we were preparing this document, and some questions that we kind of think might come our way is, well, how are we filling out this next section? Items requiring documentation. So for total credit card expenses, I listed 2 expenses here with the total amount of $179.24. If I scroll down some pages, we see that I'd have the general ledger support here. And we get to credit card statements and receipts. And this is, typically what a credit card statement would look like. Following this page, you'd have a breakdown of the individual expenses. I was not able to find a sample of that. However, you'll see that this is kind of how we want this section to look, with a credit card statement. And then following that are the 2 receipts then that would equal that amount that was registered. So when it comes to number of items on the credit card expenses, we're looking at the individual expenses and then the total of those. And then there should be some documentation to follow. Okay, I'll go back up. Another one is the total travel expenses. And this gets kind of confusing because if one person is traveling to a training, for example, you know, they're going to have the expense for their training, they're going to have the expense for the hotel, and they're going to have the expenses for meals potentially, and or cab, taxi fares. So with this one, number of items, that's just going to be one instance of traveling. So I'll show you kind of what that means. So I've listed here one item for 30482, and I've taken an example of some prior documentation that I've had to fill out myself. So for travel expense documentation, this first page here kind of details all my expenses.
Can you make that a little bigger?
Yeah. And this is just what we use here at IHCDA. So your documentation is going to look different, of course. I've got my cover page here detailing all my expenses, signatures. This is obviously my copy, not the completed copy. So we would want to see the completed copy within your claim documentation. It goes into my travel request. So this is when I requested, the availability of going for this travel. Then I have, my receipt for my room accommodations. Then that's followed by all my receipts, for meals and what have you. So that's how we envision that travel expense piece to work. And then, like I said, we have this order here with the different cover pages, and I'm sure you've seen those now. General ledger or expense report. That's where you would put in your general ledger or your expense report. This is an expense report that probably looks familiar to many of our agencies. However, other agencies use something different, and that's fine. This is where you would put that information, and that would detail, those total amounts. And then that would go into your credit card receipts. Charges over 1,000. That's pretty straightforward. I didn't have any example or sample information to use here, but that's where you would put this information. Then it goes into travel expense documentation. And then finally, any other necessary documentation dictated by IHCDA staff policies or contracts. So I believe it's pretty straightforward. We're not really asking for any additional information compared to what's already being provided. And I believe it's going to go a long, long way in kind of creating many separate efficiencies within IHCDA, but I also think it's going to provide a really nice structure for everyone to follow, where everybody knows that they're submitting the correct documentation. It kind of walks you right through it and should be a very easy process.
Justin, you do have a question in the comments. I can read it to you if you'd like.
Okay.
It says, is it correct that we explain and provide the detail for credit card purchases that are not explained in the general ledger description? Because if there is a description in the general ledger, we don't have to submit copies of every single purchase, right?
Correct. Yep. That would be correct for that situation.
Then I have a question, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
For the claim number, does it matter if they put claim number 1, 2, 3, or the 6-digit claim receipt number? Do you prefer, or does claims prefer one or the other, or does it not matter?
I believe for financial ops, they would want that 6-digit number. This is just a sample, so it just threw a 1 in there. But yeah, I would use the claim receipt number there.
Okay, and another question while I wait to see if anyone else has a question. For the IHCDA program support section, so should agencies only list the programs that they're supporting that IHCDA manages, so like weatherization, EAP, maybe HCV?
Yeah, definitely, use that section as you see fit. Some agencies may want to input additional information in there so that they can use that for themselves to track. However, at this time, we are only requiring that programs that are under the IHCDA umbrella, are included.
Okay, question. Will we be uploading this cover sheet as supporting documentation?
Yeah, so this cover sheet, the idea would be that this would be the first page of your claim supporting documentation. With all the further documentation kind of going in that order that's set down at the bottom of the cover sheet. So, do we have any other questions?
Not so far. Again,
Okay.
everyone, you can unmute yourself if you want to do a shout out. And so this is something that Justin mentioned. He has been working really closely with our financial ops department, our claims department on, I know he's already mentioned it or talked it through with a group of the financial staff at agencies. So if anyone even has a question or even, hey, if you could just make this small update, it would make it that much more useful for us. I know we're always open to suggestions like that. But we are hoping, my hope is to have everyone using this document sometime in the next couple of months again, so we can have consistency across the network.
I see another question here from Penny. Do you want the title pages for each section, as in general ledger, etc.? It would be great if they were used. I think that it goes a long way in providing clarity for anybody that's reviewing the documentation. However, as far as that being a mandatory thing, I'll leave that up to Veronica.
For now, we'll leave it off, but we'll see if that needs to be changed. And in case you're wondering, I mean, I think Justin made some really good arguments for why this will be useful for you. I think a lot of the use will be felt on the IHCDA side in helping us be more efficient in reviewing claims, but I do want to point out that that works in your favor because that makes it much less likely that our staff will come back and ask you questions, taking up more of your time and probably your concern. I know you might be a little nervous if you see a question from program or claim staff. So if you're able to make things clear from the beginning, you're much less likely to get one of those emails and much more likely to have your claim approved that much more quickly.
Mm-hmm. And also on the second, Veronica's statement about suggestions, please feel free to submit any suggestions to Veronica or myself over the next couple days. I will do my best to incorporate any suggestions that are reasonable into this form to make sure that it's creating as much value to everybody as possible.
Question on the middle section, the IHCDA program support. Is that middle section only for IHCDA program support for CSBG?
Yeah, again, for now, it's we're only requesting that any programs under the IHCDA umbrella, if they are being supported by CSBG, that those would be listed. We do know that there's a lot of programs that are homegrown programs within the agency. They may have their own program that they house underneath their own personal CSBG umbrella, and we're not needing that information yet. Only other grant-funded programs that are under the IHCDA banner.
If agencies wanted to add those extra programs, could they potentially to help them prepare for the closeout report where we ask for that information?
For sure.
Okay.
And to second that, I think I mentioned that earlier. I might have skipped over that, but use that section how it fits you best. We're requesting this specific information as far as the IHCDA programs. However, if it makes your life easier, or if it's something that makes sense for your agency to do as far as filling out further program document or further program support, please use that.
Yeah, so some of those programs would be EAP, LIHEAP, weatherization, IDA, HCV, Housing Choice Voucher. If you have anything with to do with ESG, HOPWA, yeah. So hopefully you can see your own awards in IHCDA online, but in case there's any staff who do not have access to that information, those are the kinds of programs that we'd be looking to see on here. Where's the cover sheet coming from? If you're asking where we'll have it, we'll post it to the CSBG webpage, and we'll also do, whenever it becomes a requirement, I'll make sure that a notice goes out to the entire network, and we'll have a link to it in that email. If you are not asking where it will be housed or where you can access it, I'm not sure what your question is. Hopefully I answered it. So it won't be in claims management. I do not have access to IHCDA online on the back end, and I'm not so we can work with our financial ops to see if that would be an option, but I can't promise that. I can promise it will be on our website. And if you are not getting CSBG emails directly from me or from IHCDA subscriptions, please email me. I'll put my email in the chat so I can make sure that you get on our listservs. All of your executive directors should be getting my emails, so they should be forwarding you any information that you are not getting directly. But if you want or need that information directly and you haven't been receiving it, please email me and let me know, and I'll make sure to get you on that list. Good questions. Anything else? All right, well, hearing none, I'll let everyone go early. As I mentioned, this was recorded. I will put the recording, the slides for the carryover and closeout under the CSBG closeout section on the CSBG webpage on IHCDA's website. We'll also post a final version of this claims cover sheet. We'll wait maybe a couple days to see if anyone else has questions or comments that might lead to edits, but we'll also post that to our website, and we'll send a notice out to everyone when that's posted and when it is if and when it is required for everyone to start doing. Right now, I'm considering making it a requirement by April 1, so Q2 of this year, but that hasn't been finalized. I'm not expecting everyone to start using it next week, though, so don't worry about that. Oh, nothing else. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Email me if you have any other questions, comments, concerns. Want to make sure you're getting emails. Otherwise, see you all in probably the next network call.
Thank you very much.